physical level, a mental level, an emotional level. Like my nerves were so fried, but I didn't see it because nobody ever warns you about that. It affects every single system of the way that your body functions, like your sleep, like your ability to focus, the way that you respond to any kind of stress. In our conscious mind are always trying to get better and we're always trying to get happier. But our subconscious mind just want to stay right here. The thing that helped the most was collapsing all of my identities and not looking for work-life balance, but looking for work-life integration and pursuing what makes me feel the most alive in any moment.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now, let's get it started. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm going to be your host as usual. In our studio, we have Monica Stewart. How are you today, ma'am?
Hey, I'm so good. It's really great to be here again.
I'm so glad to have you going. So glad to have you. Guys, this is going to be a really cool show. We're going to talk about the spiritual journey of the entrepreneur. It's not a conversation that we typically have. You know, this isn't necessarily a religious conversation, but this is a conversation that is probably going to answer some questions for you that may just been like muddling around in your mind. So before we get into it, I would love it. I would be honored if you would like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. And without further ado, let's get to it. So Monica, for our guests that didn't get a chance to meet you last time, can you give us a little bit of a background on who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
Yeah, totally. So my name is Monica. I am the founder of MSP Consulting, and I help B2B SaaS founders grow sustainable revenue systems between 1 and 10 million in sales-led ARR. I've been doing this, in some way, shape, or form for my entire professional career, which is over 15 years. And the reason that I do this is because I have learned over time that I have a really very specific skill set that can help founders at this one really specific stage in their journey. And I have tremendous respect for what it takes to grow and run your own business. And I want to help people on that path where and when I can.
Thank you so much. You know, one of the, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 odd years. And, there's certainly been growth, from a mental perspective. There's been a growth from, just a toughness perspective, learning how to, roll with the punches and that sort of thing. But I think one of the things that, I've experienced over the past, 4 or 5 years is more of that, there's something else to it. And we spoke last time really briefly in our conversation about that spiritual journey. And I want to get into that. So can you start off and just give us like an overview of what that looks like?
Yeah, totally. And I think maybe to answer that, the best thing to do might be to just kind of like walk through what my path has been a little bit. So
Perfect.
my parents were both entrepreneurs. When I was growing up, I never knew anyone that had a job, which was really interesting because I'm still the only person in my immediate family to graduate from college. And when I did that, I was like, I didn't even know like what I wanted to study. I didn't even know what jobs were basically, but I did know that I wanted to be successful and I never wanted to be broke in my life. But when I say like corporate life, I never worked in a company more than 100 people. So for a lot of people, it wasn't that corporate, but for me, it was, right? Spent a lot of years learning how to navigate being successful within companies. And I did become very good at that. A lot of great success stories that I'm very proud of, like got into leadership really quickly, all of that. And then I started to kind of get this bug where I started to realize like, I could do this on my own. Like I could consult, create my own service and my own product, and I can work with whoever I want to work with. And I can start to become, sort of like the captain of my own ship. And because when I was working within organizations, I was like unmanageable. Like I was always like my goal was to be the highest performer.
Mhm.
And I succeeded at doing that. And I just like worked my way to freedom basically. And then I saw that there was this other path where I was like, I could just create my own freedom and I wouldn't be having to like work within this other structure. And so I got really excited about that. And then I ended up still getting convinced to go and work for other people twice after that. And then finally, like, got to the point where I was ready to fully go out on my own, had like a burnout period in the middle there. And then I think like really committed to like locking in and growing my own business about 3 years ago. And so those are kind of the chapters of the story is like first chapter, trying to find freedom within this other structure because I didn't know any other way. Second chapter, realizing that there was another way, failing to actually get there because I wasn't ready. I didn't believe in myself enough yet. And I also was like, I would get really, really seduced by the idea of like being wanted and chosen. And I'm like, oh, these people like really want me to work with them. Like that feels really good. That's chapter two. And then, eventually waking up and realizing like, oh, I'm still working for somebody else again. And then chapter three is, going through like a year and a half of like serious burnout and then coming out of that and saying like, okay, I'm finally ready to take myself seriously and really commit to myself really and commit to what I know I can do in the world and go out and actually like try to build something.
So the question becomes, I mean, that's the spiritual aspect of that. I mean, there's the unseen, the untouchable component of who we are that tends to dictate, our thinking or drive some of our thinking. And, sometimes we rebel, against that,
Mhm.
and we put ourselves in burnout. Because we're supposed to be doing this other thing. Our spirit's just like, hey, we want you to, go build bridges. And it's like, well, I just want to be safe and, blah, blah, blah. What was that experience like for you?
So I think that for me, I always have been someone who I pride myself on being able to say yes to things and I never want to let people down. So like I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And it took me a really long time to realize that no one else is ever going to tell you to put something down because everything that you're carrying for someone else and they're like you're helping them, like they're benefiting from that. And not in like a nefarious or manipulative way, but that's really not their job because they also don't know all of the other things that you're carrying. So I think like for me, my burnout journey was getting to the point where I had said yes to so many things and I was carrying so many people and so many different responsibilities. And it was like I was also really high on proving to myself that I could do that. And it was like, I can't believe this is all working. And like I'm managing all these things. And I was really living like three completely separate, like fully different lives all at the same
Yeah.
time. And I didn't listen to any of the warning signs. And then I finally got like the message that you can't do this anymore. And I remember, I mean, what happened was that I ended a really big consulting project that I was working on that was massively successful.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a little break now. And
Hmm.
then that break lasted a year and a half. Like I would open my computer and I didn't plan on taking the break, but I would open my computer and just stare at it for like an hour. Like I didn't even know what to do. My brain just literally stopped functioning. And now I recognize that then I started reading about signs of burnout and I recognized that like, that's actually what was happening, like on a physical level, a mental level, an emotional level, like my nerves were so fried but I didn't see it because nobody ever warns you about that.
Hmm.
So once I kind of saw that, and like no one ever tells you how serious it's going to be. You're like, oh, like go take a vacation. Like, sure, you're stressed, whatever. It affects every single system of the way that your body functions, like your sleep, like your ability to focus, the way that you respond to any kind of stress. And so then, I had to kind of like rebuild that
Hmm.
and I think in the process of doing that, it gave me the opportunity to ask, like, what do I want to build towards? Because I know
Hmm.
that I'm definitely not going to go, back to the way that I was doing things before. That's like
Hmm.
not an option. And so, like, what do I actually want to create for myself now that I've put myself in a position where I can create anything that I
And how did you what did you do? Did you I remember with my own journey, I'd run, Epiphany for 20 years, and I just got to a point where it was just like, okay, it was dying. You know what I'm saying? It had no more spark, had no more juice. And, I literally had to sit down at one point and just sit with it. It was like, okay, what is next? What is going to be different? What is this thing going to be that I'm going to build? What was it for you? What was that like for you? Because, I mean, you were working for companies, and all of a sudden you're just like, "Wait, stop. I can do this
Yeah.
for myself."
Yeah, well, and also like one of the companies the last company that I worked for actually before I went out on my own I helped to build a really big consulting agency and that actually put me off of wanting to do my own consulting for a really long time. And it's like one of the reasons why I took this like whole break from the industry was because I was like, I don't want to do it like that. Like I would not build that for myself. And I guess I didn't really stop to consider that like I could just do something completely different. So I did think really intentionally about like, what do I want this to look like? And one of the things that was always really core for me is like the reason that I do this work is to work with founders. It's not to build a multi-million dollar company. It's not to, I do want to be famous, but like, it's not so that like, I don't want to speak at conferences. Like, it's not about like me becoming a big name. For me,
Mhm,
it's more about becoming very well respected for what I
mhm,
do. And so for me, the core of that is like I want to I want to put myself in the position where I can always do like the best work possible, and I want to spend as much time as possible with my clients, which means that I don't want to have employees ever.
mhm,
And it's more important to me to be able to have like a really scalable way of working with clients than it is for me to have, let's say, like the freedom to take a bunch of time off every year.
mm,
So, there's like different models that people have when they're building a services business. And I think like one model is like the time freedom work life balance model, right? And sometimes they see people doing this because they want to spend time with their family or because they have something else that they do that's like they're a writer and they want to like have time to write their book or ride horses or like, whatever their thing is. At this point in my life, there's nothing else that is taking my attention away from this. Like other than, having a social life and like taking care of myself, this is the thing that I want to spend time on. I was at an event last night for Tech Week and I was like having a great conversation with somebody, having a glass of wine. And I was like, I got to go. Like, I want to go home and there's a couple more things that I want to work on tonight before I go to bed and start my day tomorrow. It's like,
mhm,
it like keeps drawing me back in that way. And I also didn't really want to optimize for like mega scalability. And, that path usually looks like you spin up a big funnel and then, you start bringing in like as much business as you can. And then when you scale past your own capacity, then you start hiring people to help you with delivery and fulfillment. And then
mhm,
that grows. I mean, that's the agency model, right? It's like very like lucrative model, but also comes with a bunch of things that I don't want. Like I don't
yeah,
want employees. I don't want a bunch of overhead. And it's because like I actually want to be in the work.
mhm,
So that was something that was very like core for me. And it was very helpful actually in realizing that there was a path to creating a business that I would really enjoy because I realized like, oh, I could just strip away all the things that I don't like to do. I could literally just not make those things a part of my business. Like I'm not great at RevOps. I don't do RevOps. Like I don't get involved in things that are not like my core areas of expertise.
mhm,
And so my focus has really been like, okay, how can I turn down the noise on everything else so that I can really be spending the majority of my time in my zone of genius?
mm, mm, mm. How did you arrive at this? I mean, I know that as entrepreneurs, we certainly have choices,
Yeah.
and about how we do things. But I think when we start to, kind of peel back the banana, there are certain things that, we're known, for trusting our gut, so to speak. What's is that kind of where you went with this, or is there something different?
I think that it definitely came from a place of intuition. And it also came from a lot of self reflection and self inquiry. And I mean, this might be kind of a weird answer, but it also kind of came from AI. Like, like when we talk about like when I started doing consulting was like, whatever, 2017. And when I started doing consulting, there was a company that wanted to hire me as their VP of sales. And I was like, look, you don't even need a VP of sales right now. You've got like two reps. Like, you're way too early for that. There's not enough full time VP of sales work here for me to even do. And I was like, I don't want to work here full time anyway. But I was like, I know what you need. I can help you and I can do that for you in like a day a week. And they were like, great. Like, how much is it going to be? And I was like, oh my God. And so I spent like so much time like putting together this proposal and I asked friends and all of this stuff. And I was like, it's going to be $5,000 a month. And they were like, great, let's do it. And I was like, really? I definitely should have asked for at least twice that much. But like I had no idea what I was doing. I just made like workshops, and like I just started creating like, material that I would come in once a week and like I would teach these reps. And like I
Mhm.
really didn't know. But so starting from like that long ago. And then, when I was like really deep in it was like 2018, 2019, when I was helping to build this agency. And then like in the last couple of years, looking at the way that the industry is going, I'm very aware that you can go to Claude right now and you can say like, hey, can you give me a discovery? Here's my company, here's my website, here's what we do. Can you give me a discovery outline according to the principles of force management or challenger or medic or whatever it is? Now,
Mhm.
is this going to be good? No, not really. Is it going to be like C plus? Yeah. Is it going to be better than what most founders are doing? Definitely. So I mean, just like with anything, like I think AI is creating this situation in a lot of industries where like you can kind of get a good enough version of stuff. And like what we used to do, like as sales consultants, is we used to be very gatekeepy. And we're like, we have the keys to the castle and you haven't closed deals and we've closed all these deals. And like, we're a special breed and like we're going to teach you the ways. And that is just not the case anymore. Like people don't need to go through us to get basic access to this information. And
Mhm.
sometimes like pretty decent access to this information if you really want to take the time to study it, right?
Mhm.
So I really thought like, all right, what am I going to build my business on that's future proof?
Mhm.
And for me, that is like the work that I do with people one on one. Like the
Yeah.
majority of the things that I work on with my clients, like my clients are smart. Like most of the time they already know what I'm telling them. Like, when we have like I had a meeting earlier today that was a proposal meeting with a founder. And I was like, look, I'm not going to tell you anything today that's going to be like news to you. Like you already know that these are the things that you need to work on. But the difference is that like I can help them get there a lot faster than they would on their own. And
Yeah.
how am I able to do that? Through like the interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence skills and the intuition that I have and my ability to read the room and my ability to move people from one place to another. And like all of the things that made me good at sales are now like sort of like energy work skills that I use with the founders that I work with,
Yeah.
which is totally decoupled from like, here's your demo framework and like, here's your discovery script and like all of that stuff. So, I also thought like, okay, if my ICP, if my clients can now go to AI and they can get a lot of these. I mean, at the agency, we used to charge people $30,000 for building a sales playbook.
Mhm.
And you can just get that right now in like 10 minutes. And again, it's not going to be great, but also a lot of the sales playbooks that consultants charge to build are also not great. Like, let's be honest with ourselves right now. So I'm like, okay, if this is the direction that the world is going, how can I just start to take that and harness it for myself and make all of my delivery really, really, really good, really high quality because I'm not a generic LLM. I have my whole brain that I can put
Mhm.
into it, but also make that like the smallest thing that I spend time on when I'm working with people so that I can give them like enormous amount of value there. And I can still have a considerable amount of time that I can devote to each client to working with them one on one, which
Mhm.
is and helping them to get to the next phase of their development as leaders and their
Mhm.
relationship with their team to change and all of those things that need to happen for change to happen in an organization, which is something that I'm uniquely positioned to do and is also like the thing that I enjoy the most. Like I don't want to teach the same medic workshop forever, you know?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
that would be boring to me. So I think that was another I would get burned out doing that. So I think that was another thing that I wanted to optimize for is like what do I think is most interesting about this work and then how can I create space to do that while still giving all my clients all the pieces of the work.
Mm. Mm. So it sounds like you went through a lot of self-reflection. I guess we jump back into it.
Yeah. So we were talking about AI and like how you design your business for the things that you want to optimize for, I guess was the question.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I was thinking is that you've obviously gone through a lot of growth, a lot of personal introspection in order to get where you get on the trajectory that you're going on. One of the things that in your note that you sent me, one of the things you talked about was the idea that growth is a nervous system event before it's a business event, and I want to I want you to explain that a little bit and what that looked like in your experience.
Totally. So I don't know if anyone listening to this is familiar with the work of Gay Hendricks. You'll know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, you should go and look up Gay Hendricks upper limit theory right now. So I listened to this podcast like 3 years ago and totally changed my life. I bought the book, I sent it to everybody. And so his theory is that everybody has a sort of a set level within them of where they feel comfortable in terms of like every factor of your life, like how healthy and like fit you feel comfortable being, like your set
Hmm.
like body state, the amount of love that you think you should have in your life, the amount of money you think you should have in your life, how happy you should be, like how free you should feel, like all of these sort of, it's like we have these little set temperature dials for all these things in our system. And so what your body wants to do, your entire system is not designed to be optimized. Your entire system is designed to be comfortable. That's why, like, anyone who's you're into fitness, I'm into fitness. That's why we constantly have to keep shocking our system to keep getting results because our
Hmm.
bodies are really good at adapting to a status quo. And so the idea is that, we as in our conscious mind are always trying to get better and we're always trying to get happier and we're always trying to have more love and more money and more success and all the things that we want. But our subconscious mind and our entire nervous system, we just want to stay right here. Like we just want to stay where we are.
Yeah.
And that set point is different for everybody. And so you don't really notice it until you start to approach or exceed it.
Hmm.
And when you approach or exceed it, what happens is that you will usually totally subconsciously do things to bring yourself back down to that level. So it's like, let's say that you are trying to lose 20 pounds and it's happening. And you're like, oh my God, like, and I feel hot and like people are looking at me and like I need to buy new jeans and like this is great. And then you might be like, you know what? I'm just gonna like, I deserve it. Like, I'm gonna go treat myself. And then you like just binge for like a
Hmm.
whole weekend. Right. And of course you can get back on that train, but what your body is trying to go back to the old person that you were. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
wait, this isn't us. This isn't what we do. And this isn't what our friends think we do. And like, you're going to get kicked out of the tribe if you keep acting like this. Like, this isn't what the people around you signed up for. And there's all these like little alarm signals that start to go off. And it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. Like, it could be like for some people, it's like a physical illness. Like, if things are going great and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have a headache. I don't know. I feel so sick. It could be that. It could be like we all have our own self-sabotaging behaviors. And I'm sure, everyone listening to this, you can probably think of a couple that you have right now, right? It could be being tired. It could be starting a fight with your partner. Like it could be a million things. Could be just like staying up way too late, doom scrolling and starting to zone out. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so the work is to start to recognize that behavior when it comes up in yourself and kind of talk to it. And instead of just going with it and letting it run your life, recognize like, and sometimes you recognize after you've done the thing, like you're gonna do the thing a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But the difference is in recognizing that behavior and then saying like, oh, okay, cool. I see what we did there. Like we probably shouldn't have gone out on a Thursday on this week when we have a lot of things to do, but we did. And I know why, and that's okay. You want to feel comfortable, like you want to like this would be a normal thing for us to do in the
Hmm.
past version of us. And I get it, but like we're going to try to not do that again. And I know it's going to be a process, it's probably going to happen again, but we're going to keep working towards this thing because how good we felt before that and all the great things that were happening and all the great things that were lined up, this is the new baseline.
Mm. Mm.
And then over time, and it can take like quite some time, you start to behave as the person where that actually is their baseline and you get comfortable with it. And then over time, that actually becomes your baseline. But this process never ends. It
Hmm.
keeps going. So like, for me, some of the ways that this has shown up is I remember the first time that I had a post go really viral. It was out of nowhere. And it was like not even a post that I thought was I typed it in the back of a car on the way to the airport and it was like 10,000 views. And I was like, cool. And then I went into an appointment and I came out like an hour later and I looked at my phone and it was like 50,000 views. And I was like, wow. And this is like a Friday, like late
Hmm.
afternoon. And then I remember like walking home and like I was texting with my friends, but I kept checking LinkedIn. And over the course of the next 24 hours, it went to over 500,000. And I know that it's not real. It's just like numbers on a screen, but it was like being perceived. No, like I felt so exposed and like,
Yeah.
and that's another level is like your level of visibility is a real thing. And I was not prepared to deal with it. And so I called
Mm.
my friend, we went out, we had a bunch of drinks and like I just disassociated basically because I could not handle it. And I felt it brought up so much anxiety and like I was not okay.
Mm,
And now I've had that happen a couple times, and now I'm like, "Cool." And now, now I'm kinda, like, sad, like, when I think it's gonna happen and it doesn't. But it took a couple times or, like, holding the amount of money that I wanna make. Like, I've gotten to levels in my business that I had planned for multiple times, and then I'm like, "Okay, alright, we're doing this," and, like, I get the clients, and then once it's actually happening, I freak out and I sabotage it because I don't actually feel comfortable. I'm like, I can't do this. Like it's gonna happen eventually. Like, and I
yeah.
start like getting kind of avoidant. And that's also happened a couple of times. And like over the past 2 years, I've put a lot into intentionally building my business and working on my nervous system so that I feel completely comfortable handling the size that my business is right now.
Mhm.
And this time it's actually working.
Mm.
But it took like, 2 false starts over the past 2 years in order to get here.
Wow, wow. You're very kind to your nervous system, you just, like, kinda coax it along. "It's okay, we're gonna get this next time."
Well,
It's
that was a big shift too. I had to learn how to do that because I learned that like, and like part of the thing about running your own business is like you don't have a boss, you don't have coworkers. No one's telling you you're doing a good job. Only I am going to tell me if I'm doing a good job or not. And if I was such a bad toxic boss to myself
Yeah.
where it was never enough. I was never working enough. I was never doing enough. If I made any mistakes, it was totally not okay. And like I wouldn't want to work for me, but I have to work
Mhm.
for me. So like that was also something that I had to work on was like, okay, if it's just me, myself, and I here, I need to start creating some emotional safety for myself with myself the way that I would for anybody else. Like I would never treat anyone else that I worked with the way that I used to talk to myself about.
Wow, wow. That's huge. My coach, tells me, that we have to celebrate these little wins, and it's like,
It's hard.
you know, I'm always just like, "Well, we have another level to get to," it's like you
Mhm.
accomplish the thing, it's like, what's next? But I really respect what you said about, these unexpected, accomplishments that you sabotage, and I'm sure that, other people experience that. It's unknown territory. I know that even with this podcast, when I remember coming in and it was just like, there's all these inquiries. People are just like, "Hey, can I be on the show? Can I be on the show?" And I'm just like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh," and it's like, whoa, and
Closes
and
laptop, walks away.
exactly, that's exactly what I did. But it's amazing how our nervous system protects us.
It does. It does. It is trying to help you. It is trying to keep you safe because we don't know the difference between feeling overexposed on LinkedIn and like actual danger because our nervous system doesn't know what LinkedIn is. So,
Yeah,
and I mean like Gay Hendricks talks about this like we are we're tribal creatures and anytime that you start to experience like really different results in an area of your life it actually puts you in danger of leaving the tribe. Like it puts you in danger of being like, hey, one of these things is not like the other. And
hmm
I'm sure that you've experienced this. Like I've also experienced like as I've grown in my life and grown in my business and grown as a person, your relationships change and like, the conversations that you have with people change. And sometimes like you changing triggers other people. And so that is actually a very real thing.
yeah, yeah. You know what I've experienced is, in the upgrading process was as you mentioned, you no longer fit in your tribe.
Hmm.
And it invited a new, different level of loneliness because I
Yeah.
don't know, perhaps even now, how I'm gonna get to that next level of contentment. You know what I'm saying? Because what I was doing before no longer fits. The definitions that I had for myself, the definitions that other people had for me no longer fit. The language changes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you experience that? And if
Oh
so,
yeah.
how'd you navigate it?
I experience that all the time. I'm in a good season of that right now cuz like there's the there's the where you start and then there's the uncomfortable part where you're pulling away from where you start. And then there's the in between part where you're like I know I can't be here anymore, but you haven't like landed on the other side and you haven't found your new tribe or like
Yeah,
rearranged your relationships with the people who are your forever tribe. And that part is really hard and like that part is really lonely. And I think for me, one of the things that came up there was I realized that I had a lot of limiting beliefs around the types of people that I wanted to be closer to and wanted to spend more time with, which was that
Mhm.
like, I wasn't on their level, or I was like too wild or too weird, or like that we wouldn't have anything to talk about, or that they wouldn't think I was cool, or, like whatever it was. And it turns out that that is not true. And like I now have a great group of people around me that I feel like we're aligned in the things that we want and the things that we're working on, and also just who we are as people.
Mhm.
And that has been fantastic. And I'm looking forward to like, doing even more of that this year. And like, I also have kind of like shifted around some of my relationships with some of my older friends. And it's cool because now one of the things that I hear from some of them is they're like, you're so inspiring, like seeing you go through this journey and like knowing who you were, when I met you versus like how you're showing up in your life now and like all of the things that you've accomplished. Like, I want to do that.
Mhm.
And that's cool because like I'm like, ah, yeah, let's go on the journey together. Like one of the things that I'll do is like I have like friends that will come over and like co-work with me, and that's amazing because it's like, if they're like, I might not be able to go out and get drinks with you guys as often as I would want to, but
Mhm.
if you want to come over and you want to co-work with me, that's amazing. And then we can go on a little walk and we can go have some wine after work, and like, seeing like how people meet you on your journey is also really cool.
That is cool. That is cool. It's interesting, how sometimes in your evolution you inspire people. Not intentionally. You're just doing you. You don't even see it coming, and someone's just like, "Wow," you're just doing the thing, and it's just like, "I want to do that." I mean, that's huge. That's
Yeah.
that's that inspiration from I don't want to say from behind, but that's kind of that push. I think sometimes to keep going.
It
You
totally is.
talked about you talked a little bit about curiosity.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and what I'm taking that to understand is, allowing yourself to just explore what's out there versus, creating a very specific expectation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Totally. Yeah, so, like, I think the way that this comes up for me the most is in, like, my actual client work.
Hmm.
So, going back to, like, kinda seeing where the industry is going and seeing where the world is going in general, there was, like, a dropping of the ego that had to happen because, again, like, we are not gatekeeping anymore. It's not about me. It's about where I can get you. That's
Hmm.
my value. And so, I think I learn something in every single project that I do. And sometimes that's from the teams that I'm working with. Like, there's often, like, people on the teams that I get to work with that have a better idea for how to do something than I do, which is great. And then sometimes it's because like I get to solve new problems with every company and with every project. And
Hmm.
so, sometimes like thinking like, okay, well this is a little bit different than the way that I've done this before because of, the way that their business is set up or whatever. All right, well, how do we adapt to that? And then sometimes that will give me clues. I'm like, you know what? This would actually work better for a lot of people. I'm going to rethink this. Like I think a lot more people need this part of the discovery conversation or like whatever it is.
Hmm.
Or like we don't need to be doing research this way. We should be doing it with this type of AI prompt or, it's always evolving. So like I
Hmm.
always lean into like I really use all of the work that I do as kind of like my own lab to like always be asking myself like, does this really make sense? Is this really the right way to do it? am i
Yeah.
am i like really teaching people like the best knowledge that is available? Like I think an example of this is I have all these workshops that I do, and now because I don't have to like click around on a PowerPoint in order to make my workshop content. Every like let's say 4 or 5 times that I run a workshop, I'll take the transcripts from those meetings and I'll run them through a Claude project that I have, and I'll ask it to summarize for me what are the things that I talked about consistently in the sessions that I ran that are not actually in the deck, that aren't included in the official content.
Hmm.
And then I'll review that. And if there are themes that are coming out that like I missed when I put it together before, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, we need to update that part because that's not applying anymore. Or people are asking questions that I haven't answered in here. And
Hmm.
so I'm constantly iterating on all of my content and it's always getting better because I'm always leaning into like, well, what did I miss?
Hmm.
And it's like my favorite part of sales is discovery. And it's almost like I'm doing like meta discovery on my own business all the
Hmm.
time. What else is there? Like, what else could we be doing?
Yeah.
And sometimes I talk to other consultants that are like, yeah, I've got like, yeah, I know there's all these other things going on, but like I've got a pretty good thing going. I strongly believe on a spiritual and personal level that like you cannot skip any steps in life. So I am constantly seeking out like if there's a change to be made, like I want to find it and I want to do it right now because I don't want to have to do it later. And I don't want it to like it's like I feel like the universe is always like, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And
Yeah.
like, I want to do it on my own terms, the easy way before I'm like forced to change.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's gonna happen one way or the other. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting in the journey to kind of honor your spirit, and your spirit is like pushing you in a certain direction, and you kind of wonder about people that don't honor that. People that'll just say, okay, well, I'm just gonna get by. I'm just gonna do the bare minimum, and I'm kind of curious about those folks. I would never want to live in that camp,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But it's just like it's just different,
It's
I
just
c
different. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do know, I know some, I can think of some people that I know very well that like, you know what? Honestly, I think that growth looks different for everyone. And like, I don't know if we know enough about somebody's inner world to know if that's really what's happening for
Mhm,
them. Like, I have some friends that like for them, like, their thing is not their career. Like,
mhm,
have good jobs, like they're good at what they do, but they wanna leave that at the door when they come home. And
mhm,
they have
mhm,
like other things in life that they're driven by and that they're inspired by.
yeah,
My best friend is like this actually, and I've been friends with her for 20 years. And like she is, I mean, she's a tremendous person and she's gone through so many phases, obviously, in the time that we've been friends. If you were to look at it from the outside, you might not know that. But I think that, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, growth, I think looks different for everybody. And we're all starting in different places and we all
yeah,
have different tasks that we have to complete in this life. And like, I'm very conscious that like my path in this life is to be pushing like hard on the birth and death cycles and the growth and the reinvention. I got a birth chart reading actually from someone about 6 months ago and 6 or 7 months ago. And she was like, yeah, you're just going to keep becoming a completely different person every 3 years, like forever.
no
And I was
pressure.
like, forever. Like it's never going to stop. And she's like, yeah, that's you in this lifetime. She was like, "Is it like, do you ever get tired?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's exhausting." But I guess like this is just, but I understand that that's not everybody's path. And I don't think I would not discount the work that anybody else is doing because I think it looks different for everybody. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that some people would look at like, the choices that I make and they're like, why are you doing all of that?
Mhm.
Like, why can't you just like, why can't you just chill?
Just turn it
And
off.
unfortunately, I cannot. I cannot chill.
I feel you on that.
Yeah.
What's is interesting is, I was reading recently, I don't remember where it was, but they were just talking about the idea that some people start this process much later in life, in
Yeah.
their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever that is, and they begin to, really get on that track, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna build a thing, or I'm gonna become the person, or whatever it is. And it's a whole, I look at it sometimes as, you've got this whole, 40 years of becoming. Your spirit is getting ready, your nervous system, you had to experience all of these things, and then you're ready to become, that version of yourself that you're ultimately going to be. And I think I think that that's amazing. I think that people that don't give up, and say, okay, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through this difficult change. I'm going to allow my nervous system to level up so that I can, take this thing that's there for me. I'm just so I think I just have so much respect for those people, you know?
Me too. Yeah. I love those stories. I don't know if you like Martha Stewart, but I watched like all of her documentaries. And she started Martha Stewart Omni Media when she was like 50. Like she got divorced from her husband and really like got serious about her catering
You
business.
said 50.
50. Yeah.
I
When she
thought you
was
said 15. I was like,
five
"Wait."
zero. Yeah. She had 3 lives, like, she got divorced and, like, really started going all in on her catering business when she
Yeah.
was, like, in her early 40s. In astrology, like, if you look at your chart you see where you have like things concentrated in your chart. It's like north node versus south node. And south node is people who came into this life with a lot of stuff, a lot of karma. And
Mhm.
sometimes it helps them and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it means that your job in this life is to work through karma from past lives. And that can look a bunch of different ways. And then
Mhm.
other people, you come into this life with not a lot in the south node. This is how my chart is. I'm all north node, which is all destiny, but it also means that you come into life like with nothing kind of. You're kind of like a blank slate. And
Mm.
so your whole work in this lifetime is to move towards your destiny in this lifetime. And you
Mhm.
don't have like anything that's dragging you down, but you also don't really have anything to work with that's helping you and you have to create it all. So I think that's another way to think about it is like, we also have different jobs and we have different reasons that we're here. And some of us are here to create something and some of us are here to get rid of things.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a friend that was telling me about that. It was interesting. We were talking about how your soul actually got to pick, part of your journey before you even born. I was just like, wow, that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is, right? Yeah. I
Yeah.
think about that a lot and I'm I wonder why, like why this path? But like what I always come back to is like the greatest like all that I have to do is just become the person that I came here to be.
Mhm.
And so that's why I take this work so seriously because like when I feel called towards something, I never question it because it always takes me in the right direction. So
Yeah.
like, for the past couple of years, I'm like, okay, what I have to do now is like I have to go and build this business and then I have to become the person that can hold that business. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do it. I'm not going to ask why. Like that's just okay. That's what I'm here to do. And we were talking about like inspiration earlier. I've been so inspired by so many people. Sometimes people I don't even know. Like sometimes it's just someone that I saw somewhere and I'm like, wow, their energy. Like, like just the vision of like how that person is showing up, like is imprinted on me. And like we never know how we impact other people's lives and like how we're showing up for them. And so I also very strongly believe that like the work that you're doing to become the person that you are here to become, create the thing that you're going to create. It's like you have to do it because if you don't do it, you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting down everyone else where you were supposed to play a role in their story. And now they don't have that thing there. And like you can't mess up the chain of interdependence, right? It's like we're all the protagonists of our own movie, but we're all characters in other people's movies. And so like you need to show up and do that walk on part. Like even if that's all it is, that still matters to other people.
I love that. I love that. I love that. We walk on characters to other people's movies.
Yeah, and we don't know what character we are. Like
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I think the biggest, struggle with the journey sometimes is, you have direction, but you don't necessarily know what destination looks like.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? And so you have to learn to navigate. My opinion is you have to learn to navigate in shorter sprints that could look like one day at a time. Has that been your experience? And how did you, if so, how did you learn to navigate that?
gosh, 100%. Like I was
I'm sorry.
I was well, because I mean, like you said, we don't know where it's gonna go. Like I like to do something that I find fun is to like go and like go back in little snapshots in my life
Mhm.
because it helps me to understand like I'll go back to a particular moment in time, whatever, some years ago, and then I'll think about okay, who was that person? What was I doing? What was I thinking about? What did I think was going to happen? What was I worried about? And then I'll play the next 2 years of life that happened after that just to remind myself like, dude, you had no clue. You had no clue. Like I like to think about like who I was, where I was, and what I was feeling before like big life events happened, right? Before I started that relationship, before I quit that job, before I, realized that I could make that move somewhere or whatever. Just to remind myself that like for what's going to happen in my future, I am that person now that's just sitting here doing a podcast with you, blissfully unaware of like what is about to happen.
Mhm.
I also like to do it because it's a good way to see your progress. You're like, I don't know, am I really like doing anything? Am I just like spinning my wheels? Am I really progressing in life? And then it's like, okay, well, what were you doing 6 months ago? And you're like, oh yeah, I did a lot of work in 6 months. But yeah, the only way. I think the only thing you can do is just keep following the path little by little because everything about my life now, I never would have been able to predict 5 years ago because I didn't even know that these things, I didn't meet the people that are in my life now. I didn't even know that these things were possible. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I had no intention on being a podcast host or media producer or anything like that. It's not on my radar at any point in my life. But you know what? I wouldn't give this up. This is absolutely amazing.
That's
From
awesome.
from a spirit perspective, I'm gonna ask you the question that I always ask my guests. We're able to define winning in whatever way that we want to. The difficulty, the challenge that we always face, and we talked about this a little bit, is that maintaining that relentless pursuit. It's breaking out of, that comfort zone. What would you recommend to our guests to help them maintain that relentless pursuit?
That's such a good question. So I think for me, the thing that has helped is collapsing my different identities. So for a long time, I felt this tension between, the different versions of Monica that exist. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I want to go over here and I want to be festival Monica, but I have to be podcast Monica. And then I've got to be work Monica and whatever, going back and forth between these different identities. And I never felt like I had enough time in any of them. And it was constantly frustrating. And that
Mhm.
makes you feel tired. That makes you feel burned out pretty quickly. And I think
Absolutely.
the thing that has really helped is harmonizing and collapsing all of those so that I feel whole and I feel like I am expressing myself fully in all of the things that I'm doing. It was upgrading my sense of self in different parts of my life so
Mhm.
that I no longer felt like I was playing a role. I felt like, no, this is really who I am. This isn't
Mhm.
me trying to be this person. This is authentically a part of me and I don't have to apologize for it in other parts of my life. And then it was also really tuning in to what I actually want to do and spending a lot less time trying to live up to other people's expectations and visions of me. Because
Yeah.
I not only felt like I was playing a role for myself in some areas of my life, but the tension was coming from me playing a role for other people where they
Mhm.
still expected me to show up as a slightly older version of myself. And I had to be okay just saying I don't want to do that anymore. This is the now, yeah, that was what I did, but now this is authentically how I am and just really honing in on you are only following your own path all the time. And then when you start to do that, you don't have work life balance, you have work life integration.
Mhm.
It's kind of like skiing. It's you get on that little path and you're just going so fast because you're so locked in.
Mhm.
I don't know if that metaphor makes sense, but I think that yeah, that was the thing that helped the most was collapsing all of my identities and not looking for work-life balance, but looking for work-life integration and pursuing what makes me feel the most alive in any moment. And sometimes that is literally working until I fall asleep in front of my laptop on my couch. And sometimes that is going to the pool with my friend. And sometimes it is sitting at home and staring at the wall in silence and just decompressing. But the important thing is that whichever of those things I'm doing, it's because it's serving my vision and my highest self.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just reminded of just being able to go into every space and just, "This is just me. Take it or
Yeah,
leave it."
wherever I go, there I am. But
Exactly,
in a good
exactly.
way.
Absolutely, absolutely, because, you bringing the most authentic version of yourself and, as you've alluded to a number of times, you're giving this to other people. You're allowing them to experience you, all of you. It's just like, wow, I didn't even realize this facets of you existed,
Right.
you
I
know?
didn't even realize they existed. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Monica, is there anything else you wanna share with our audience before we call it a day?
No, that's it. This has been such a good conversation, as always. Thank you so much for having me on. And I would say, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, these are one of the things that I write about all the time on LinkedIn. You can find me there, Monica Stewart. Send me a DM. I always love to.
Outstanding. And I will make sure that in the show description, we have access to your LinkedIn profile so folks can follow you. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.